What up, Mirthlings? This is Mirthy, and you're on my channel where I talk about voice acting stuff and music stuff. Well, today we're going to be talking about music stuff. Now, we're going to go into how to write 30 plus songs in a year. And that might seem like a huge number, especially if you're just starting out in your songwriting career. Now, one of the biggest problems for songwriters that I've seen is actually finishing a full song. Now, obviously, it's not a fast process, but in terms of the bare bones of the song, it doesn't have to take forever. In the last year, I wrote 30 songs, while a friend of mine finished 2. Now, why is this? Am I a better writer than him? No, but I am a better finisher. I wrote 30 songs. I didn't say they were all hits. Whereas my friend was focusing on creating the perfect songs envisioned in his mind, I was getting ideas left and right. And I was at one time writing one song every single morning as soon as I woke up. How? I focused on the song like a pattern I was continuing. I use what some call modeling. Modeling is where if you want to do something, you imitate someone who does it exactly how you want to do it. So, I wanted to write a song. I found a band I liked, and I looked at the structure of their songs and chose a structure that looked like theirs. This went something along the lines of verse, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, chorus. Sometimes it might be shorter, losing one or two of those song pieces, but for the most part, all the songs were structured the same way. That took one decision off the table, less to think about. Then it was almost like ad-libbing. You just choose some chords that sound good, and that day, it was different. Each day was different. And, you picked some chords that matched the feeling or idea that you're playing with. And I would start spinning out lines until they made enough sense for me to write down in pen. I would go through this process until I had written enough song fragments to put together. Literally like Mad Libs or Ad Libs or whatever you want to call it, where you're just kind of piecing things together and it becomes one solid thing in the end. Usually it took me between 1 and 2 hours per song. Now, I had dumbed down the process somewhat and simultaneously followed a pattern that bigger musicians used and profited on. So, my songs, good or bad, sounded like something that might be on the radio or heard in coffee shops and stores around the world. Meanwhile, my buddy was pouring himself into 2 songs which so much content that, it becomes too flooded for the listener to digest. We had about the same amount of training, which was none, so why were mine seemingly more fleshed out than his? Take a look at this. The other benefit of my way is that you basically get a ton of practice. You find out what works, what doesn't, what skills you need to improve on, then you keep moving on to the next project and do each one a little bit better than the last. With my buddy's route, you spend a lot of time at the same level of skill on one song, and you only see, at the very end, the whole process, and then you critique yourself on the whole project. And what happens is you end up nitpicking the whole thing, and sometimes you might discourage yourself from continuing because you're just seeing everything at one time. Whereas putting out song after song after song, and you're just tweaking things, you're fixing your vocals, fixing your guitar playing, you're fixing your recording ability. I credit the speed of my songwriting quality growth because of this reason. Now think of this analogy. You may have heard it before while being used to teach compound interest. A man asks his 2 kids a question. He says, "For your inheritance, I will give you 2 options. The first one is $1 million now. That's it. No questions asked. Here's the cash. The second option is, I'll give you a penny, and every day I will double that penny for 30 days. So 1 penny is going to become 2, 2 becomes 4, and so on. Which one do you choose?" Have you heard it? What happens is, one child picks the $1 million, seemingly the obvious choice. Now the other takes the penny and it gets doubled every day for 30 days. Do you know what a penny becomes after being doubled for 30 days? $5,368,279.12. Having seen the math, you'd be an idiot not to take the penny. Now, how does this relate to songwriting? Consider that each song you write is a penny, and the knowledge you get every time you finish one is the compound interest. So by the end of writing 30 songs, you will have had $5 million worth of songwriting knowledge. While taking the $1 million or spending the time perfecting one song will still be beneficial, but why waste time? You might as well still reach your goals, or better, if there's a way to, right? Some common obstacles that hold songwriters back from finishing their songs are listed next, and with possible solutions to help you overcome them. One of which is lack of ideas, inspiration, or lyrics. Now, it can be hard to start a song, let alone finish one. In order to fuel your brain, you should implement a process that stimulates your creativity and surrounds you with inspiring vibes. I use movies, art, architecture, emotions, memories, and philosophy. Stretch what you think songs are supposed to be inspired by into what they really are inspired by. Everything. The world. Life. The next thing is remembering the initial emotional inspiration. What this means is sometimes inspiration hits at the weirdest times, and you're not in front of your guitar, notepad, or computer to delve into the writing process right away. Or maybe you start a song and you come back a few days later and you can't remember the exact emotion that had triggered you to make it. The best thing to combat these issues is to document as fast as possible. The human short-term memory sucks. Knowing this, you'd be better off doing one of these methods to help yourself keep track of ideas. Write down journal entries before you pause on working on your song for the day. Write down every feeling or idea for that song and use imagery words to really try and convey the message to yourself the next time you come back to it. The other option is my favorite. Record everything before you stop for the day. Use your phone voice memos or regular video even onto your computer using the webcam. It doesn't matter. As long as you play the chords, sing the melody, sing some lyrics, and then tell the camera all about the song's background, and that way you'll know exactly where you were going with it. The next thing that can stop people is thinking that your song is not good enough. Activate the Mirthy mindset. A lot of writers get stuck because they are too close to the project. It's not perfect enough for them, but the fact is, it will never be perfect to you. You can always find places where you can make it better or use better lyrics, but the goal here is not to make the unattainable. You're here to pump out gold, and the only way to do that is to dig it up. You write a ton of song fragments, don't throw them away. Save them and later sift them into a fully functioning song that you hadn't been able to write all at one sitting. Some think that making a bad song is a failure. It is, but in the real world, the definition of failure is learning and growth, and the only truly negative failure is giving up. Next thing is not prioritizing. Another issue we run into as songwriters is getting distracted by all our other projects, working on covers, social media, vlogs, or fiddling around playing old songs when we're supposed to be working on a new piece. You have to cut out distractions and make your creative process the path of least resistance. Make an environment that you can work in. This may include secluding yourself somewhere and shutting down your computer and phone, or maybe avoiding social media for a couple hours and turning your phone to do not disturb mode. Go back to basics and sit down with what you really need to write. For me, it's an acoustic guitar and a notepad and pen, and maybe my phone for voice memos to record progress. The last issue that people run into is outside influence. There are times when your brain is your biggest enemy, and when it comes to all the other music out there, this can be detrimental to your songwriting process. It's gonna fuck it up. You might get locked up inside your own head and can only think of one chord progression, and your song sounds stale to you. Or you might have the latest hit from Weezer stuck in your head because it's been blasted on the radio for the last 2 weeks, and now all your songs sound like Weezer. This means one thing: you need to take a breather from songwriting and decide which of these examples is for you. Now, maybe you need to listen to a Pandora radio channel in your preferred genre and set it to play bands that you've never heard of in order to give you new ideas and inspiration. Or maybe you need to cut music listening out and search for inspiration from other things like visual arts or movies. Or another option is to listen to a musical genre that you like but don't really play and write for. This will help you clear your mind's slate and start fresh. It's kind of like if you go to buy perfume or cologne, a lot of times the seller will have a little cup of ground coffee beans. This is because your nose can become overloaded with all the flowery or musky scents and become muddled to the point where you can't differentiate them anymore. And that coffee smell is a big change from those, and it refreshes your odor sensing abilities. So get outside and explore your city, or go for a hike and reset your mind. Alright guys, that's it for today's episode. I want to thank you for listening, and if you want to support me on Patreon, that's more for my voice acting community, but definitely check it out. It could be something fun for you. All the other social medias down below. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. See you guys.